Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Neelambujashyamalako Sita Samaropitavamabhagam Pano Mahasayakacharuchapam Namami Ramam Raghuvamshanatham Atulita Baladhamam Hemashailaabhadeham Danujavana Krashanum Jnaninaamagraganyam Sakala Guna Nidhanam Vanaranamadhisham Raghupati Priya Bhaktam Vatajatam Namami. In the Ramcharitmanas, we are currently seeing the portion where Bhagavan is meeting Jatayu after he has attempted to help Sitaji when Ravana kidnaps her. So some of you are joining for the first time today. We're not starting from the beginning of the Ramayana. This class has been ongoing. But since everybody knows the Ramayana story, really this is more just about having satsang and learning what we can from the story and from Bhagavan's life in this avatar. And there is so much to learn. There is so much for us to discover here. There are so many lessons. So the portion that we are seeing, as I said, is this Sita Harana, where Sitaji has been kidnapped. And Bhagavan was not there at the time, which is why it could happen. And we have this really beautiful character of Jatayu who comes in to try and help. And we saw that episode, and one of the things that we thought about when we saw that part of the story was about what is success, right? This is one really important thing that we learn here, is that it's very important to question what our definition of success is in life. Because on the face of it, you have these two characters, right? On the one hand, you have Ravana, and on the other hand, you have Jatayu. Ravana's goal was to kidnap Sitaji. Jatayuji's goal was to stop Ravana. Now, if success means the achievement of our goals, then in that case, Ravana was successful and Jatayu was a failure. But what we see is Bhagavan's response, Śrī Rāma's response to both of them is so different. His response to Jatayu is one of immense love and compassion. And his response to Ravana is very different. Even though at the end of the Ramayana, what is said is that Bhagavan Ram gives liberation to Ravana as well, he doesn't love him in the same way that he loves Jatayu. And especially as spiritual seekers, those who are trying to develop devotion, those who are trying to purify their mind and to gain this most subtle knowledge that is pointed out in the Upanishads, etc. For us, our definition of success should be different. And very simply, one way of looking at this here is success means having the love of God. One is having love for God. But having the love of God is true success. Just like in any relationship, right? When you feel that you love someone, you also want them to say that they love you. You want to hear it back, right? You don't want to say, I love you to somebody, and they don't say the same thing in return. We like to hear that we are loved. And in devotion also, the devotee goes on saying to God that I love you. But to hear it back from God is something very special. And here we see that Jatayu is successful in the best possible way because he has the love of God. This is one thing that we see here. The other thing that we see is, for spiritual students again, we have two choices in life. There are two paths that we are presented with at every moment. Every time we have to make a decision, we have two choices. And those two choices are, on the one hand, prayas, the path of the pleasant, and on the other hand, shreyas, the path of the good. Anytime we have to make a choice, there are lots of ways of thinking about how to make decisions in life, right? And of weighing up all the different options which are before us. But the seeker's way of measuring is looking at which one is prayas and which one is shreyas. In other words, which one is going to give me long-term success, long-term happiness, long-term growth, that is shreyas. And which one will give me maybe fleeting happiness, short-term gratification, but in the long term, no real growth, that one is prayas. We can either live a long life of choosing prayas again and again and again, or we can choose shreyas, even if that means our life is cut short, like Jatayu. Jatayuji chose shreyas, and actually because of that choice, he has sacrificed his physical form, right? His body is no longer any use to him. If we have a long life and we keep choosing prayas, what that means is we will just keep having short-term happiness and then again the experience of sorrow. And long-term, what it means is we will have some enjoyment or pleasure in this life, but when we're born again, we'll be exactly in the same position that we started. There is no forward movement in terms of our spiritual growth. But the person who chooses shreyas, who chooses the path of the good, even though at the time it might feel painful, it might not really feel like anything good at all, in the long term, that's what assures our success. In the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna talks about three types of happiness. There is tamasic happiness, there is rajasic happiness, and there is sattvic happiness. Tamasic happiness, he says, is really not happiness at all. You're just deluding yourself when you experience that kind of joy. For example, the kind of joy that somebody gets from taking some intoxicant, right? That's a tamasic joy. It's not really joy at all. It's sorrow, it's suffering. Rajasic joy is that which feels good at first, but later which makes you regret it. People who like spicy food, you eat like a really spicy meal. And at the time you really enjoy it, even though you're sweating and really a little bit suffering at the time, but you really enjoy it. And then what happens a couple of hours after that meal or the next day? You suffer. So at the time, it feels really good. And later, it leads to sorrow. But very interestingly, how Sri Krishna talks about sattvic joy, he says at the time, it might feel like poison. But later you will realize that that is true joy. When you're not used to it, waking up early, for example, is really hard. And it feels really painful because you're sacrificing your time in bed where you're so comfortable, etc. So at the time, it doesn't feel good at all. But when you do it consistently for some time, then you start to recognize that actually this is joy. This is more joyful than staying in bed and rolling around there for an extra hour or so. So Jatayuji shows us here how to make the choice for Shreyas in life. And the reward of that is immeasurable. The reward of that is not only his love for God grows, but Śrī Rāma is expressing his love for Jatayuji. And we will see this in this, what is coming immediately now. So there's a lot to think about here. Very interesting. Now, in this Aranyakanda, we were seeing after doha 31, where after Jatayuji drops his body, he is offering praise of Śrī Rāma. And so in the last session, we had seen the first two, I think, verses. And so we're seeing the next two now. Jihi Shruti Niranjana, sorry, from there. Those who have the book. Those who don't have the book, there is, the PDF is actually available online. So it's very easy. If you search for that, you'll find it. You don't need it immediately, but if you want it for your reference, then it's nice to have. So Jatayuji is praising Bhagavan, and he says, "O Rama, you are actually that infinite reality which the Vedas praise. You are not just this physical form. You are that infinite reality. You are all pervading. You are free of any kind of impurity. You are unborn." I think Jatayuji was also aware of Rama's ultimate nature. It was not a secret from him. This is what happens when you become a devotee, is that Bhagavan's secrets get revealed. So you are that ultimate reality. And that ultimate reality is that upon which all these yogis, etc., they do so much meditation and they have to develop so much dispassion. They spend so long trying to gain this knowledge of you as this infinite reality. And they attain you as that. And that path is not easy, right? The path of knowledge is described as the razor's edge because it requires so much alertness, so much vigilance, not over anything external, over one's own mind. And that's really tricky. It's easy to watch with your eyes and be vigilant. But to be vigilant of the internal workings of our own mind, and to do so much sadhana and to develop so much dispassion, not only again from the external, but to develop dispassion from our own thoughts, to develop dispassion from our own ego, that's what's required to attain this infinite reality. So he says, Munis meditate upon you in this way, but that infinite reality is now manifest before me as the abode of all compassion, as this most beautiful form, and whose beauty is so enchanting that the entire creation is almost deluded by your beauty, Bhagavan. Deluded in the sense, when you see something beautiful, your mind, one, goes still very often. Like if you see something beautiful in nature, your mind becomes quiet, and also it's very hard to shift your gaze away from it, right? You just keep looking. So deluded, not in the sense that they become ignorant, but the Lord's form is so beautiful that everyone who sees him, they forget everything else and they just want to see that form. So the entire creation is deluded by your beauty in this way. So one is, God is the infinite reality. Second is, he has this physical form which is perceptible to the eyes. But now, very beautifully, Jatayuji says, not only am I seeing you outside like this, but mama hridaya pankaja bhringa anga ananga bahu chabi sohai. He says, you are like the bee that is resting near the lotus of my heart. So my heart is like a lotus, and you are like the bees like to stay near the lotus flowers, right? To collect all the nectar. This is very interesting because usually in this type of literature, it'll be the other way around. That Bhagavan, whether himself or his feet are like the lotus, and the devotee always says, may I be like a bee, because in that case I will always be near you. Here Jatayuji says that you are like the bee, you're always near me. So reversed. Means he recognizes that God is never away from me. This is the other thing that we find difficult, is that God often seems so far away. I know God is great and God knows everything and God is all loving, but I don't recognize the proximity of God in my daily life. This is what we feel as devotees or as seekers. Here Jatayuji says, I know that you are always near me. You are always in my heart. You are even more beautiful than Kamadev. So the deity of love is said to have this most beautiful form. He says you're even more beautiful than him. You are both unknowable and very easily known. So often in these kind of stutis, you will see this contradictory language being used. So this is, you are very easily known, but also you are very difficult to know. So now if you think, for whom is God difficult to know? And for whom is God easily known? So for those whose minds are so extroverted, who are constantly seeking pleasure from the world outside, for them God will be very difficult to know. For those whose minds are full of doubt, or who are always finding fault in everything, for those people, God will be unknown. But for those who have made themselves humble, for those who are pure of mind, for them God is very easily known. God by himself, one very interesting thing is said by Adi Shankaracharya. He says God should be seen as rain. Why should we see God as rain? Because rain is impartial. When the rain falls, it falls everywhere, right? But there is a difference in the ground upon which the rain falls. If there is ground where there is soil, and that soil has been prepared, and seeds have been planted, and that soil is full of nutrients, etc. When the rain falls there, then all those plants and everything will flourish. See, there's in another place very dry land, or land that has been paved over with concrete. When the rain falls there, will anything happen to that ground? You won't see any effect. Maybe after a few hundred years, you will notice that that ground has been smoothed a little bit by the rain. But otherwise, no effect is discernible there. God is impartial. The difference is in all of us. Okay? That's why some of us feel, some people feel that God's grace is so evident in my life. And some people feel everybody else is being favored by God. And I don't see God's grace anywhere in my life. Not because God actually is partial and is looking down at all of us and is choosing, okay, this person is good, I'll give some more grace. This person is bad. It's because of the difference in our own mind. So when things like this are said, we should understand how to take it. Okay? For some people, God is unknown. For some people, God is very easily known. Bhagavan's nature is nirmala, very pure. He is different, he is the same. So again, this contradictory language. In the Gita also, Bhagavan says, I'm the same in all, but devotees know me and I am present in them. Means devotees are special. You want to be special to God, be a devotee. Your nature is Sitala, you have a very cool nature. Never get angry. All these yogis, they see you having done so much sadhana, etc., subduing their senses and mind. You are that truth. You are Rama. You are the abode of Lakshmi. And even though you preside over all three worlds, means higher worlds, this world, and lower worlds, you are the Lord of everything, but you are you are at the, not at the mercy of, but you are controlled by your devotees almost. Not controlled, in the sense that Bhagavan says, if there is someone who loves me completely, then God himself says, I am at the service of that devotee. Who? That God who is the Lord of all three worlds says, I serve my devotees. May that Bhagavan reside in my heart. Is there any time at which God is not present in our heart? No. God is always present in our heart. May I remember that God is always there. Who is God? The one who quietens this samsara. Means the one who puts an end to this transmigration. It's constant coming and going, birth and death, life after life after life. Just by singing the glories of God, that samsara can come to an end. So Jatayu sings the praises of Śrī Rāma in this way. And after he's done that, what does he do? He asks for uninterrupted devotion. Avirala bhakti. It's that bhakti which is firm. And he ascends to Haridham. Means he goes to the Lord's abode. And now again, one very interesting thing is said. Tehi ki kriya jathochita nijakare kinhi Ram. After Jatayu has left his body, Śrī Rāma, with his own hands, performs the final samskara, means the funeral rites for Jatayu. The Lord of the universe, who has taken the form of the Prince of Ayodhya, performs the funeral rites of this vulture. Now, why is this something for us to think about, something unusual? The first thing is, the funeral rites that we perform are given to us by the scriptures. And in those scriptures, these funeral rites are intended only for human beings. All samskaras, right? All 16 samskaras that somebody is supposed to go through in one lifetime. There are more actually, but 16 that are commonly done, right? Including the thread ceremony, marriage, etc. All of those samskaras are only meant for human beings. So one is, there is no requirement for Jatayu to have these funeral rites done. Second is that Rama as a prince doesn't need to perform this funeral rite for anyone. He did it for his own father, that's a different thing. But he does it here. So why does Rama perform the funeral rites of Jatayu? So one thing that is said is, Jatayu is a contemporary of Dasharath Maharaj. So Śrī Rāma saw him as his own father, like a father figure. And therefore he did this Antyeshti, the funeral. This is one thing. But the other thing is again something for us to learn about seva. Because what Śrī Rāma is doing by performing this funeral, he is doing seva of Jatayu. Now, when we do seva, do we do that seva because it's required by the one we are serving? Or do we do that seva because it's required by us? If we ask that question here, right? Did Jatayuji need this funeral rite to be performed and to be performed by Rama? So the answer to that is no, because funeral rites are not necessary for any jiva that takes an animal body. So why did Rama do it? Because he's teaching us this one thing about seva. Really speaking, the seva that we do is not for the sake of the one we are serving. Seva is for our own sake. Seva is our means for growth. If you think about in a temple, right, in a mandir, in many mandirs, daily they will have 2 or 3 pujas and 2 or 3 arti ceremonies going on. Okay. Now say one day the priest thinks, I'm really busy today, so I will skip one. Anyway, Bhagavan doesn't mind, so I will skip it and I'll just do one. What difference does it make? So now, do you think Bhagavan needs us every day to go into the mandir and do arti and do puja? Do you think that God feels any loss when puja is not done or when arti is not offered? Who is that puja actually for? It's for us. That offering any worship is for us. The Lord of the universe, do you think he suffers anything if one person in this creation stops doing puja? It doesn't make any difference to Bhagavan. That puja, arti, whatever worship is our means for growth. Śrī Rāma did not do this because he thought Jatayuji needs it. He did it because he felt, this is my seva, and I want to do it. Now, what makes us feel like doing seva? What makes us feel like offering that service? What makes us feel that, even if the other person doesn't need it, I still want to offer? What will make us feel that way is when we have developed some love, some devotion. When we feel for the one we are serving. Seva requires both head and heart to come together. Right? Head in the sense that this is the right thing to do, but heart because we have to feel something to be prompted into action. So we should always remember this, that by doing seva, by offering service, we're not doing anyone any great favor. By offering seva and Chinmay mission, it's not like we're doing a favor for Puja Gurudev. Where would Gurudev be without me? Everything will go on without us. It is our opportunity. In fact, it's a privilege to be able to serve. Very few people get that opportunity to help their own self-development and evolution through the offering of some seva. Right? So this is one other very important thing for us to remember here. Now, Tulasidas ji says, Komalachita Ati Dina Dayala. Bhagavan is so compassionate and so tender-hearted. His heart is komala, it's very soft. And he is compassionate without any reason. He doesn't need a reason to bestow his grace, to be compassionate. If you need a reason to be compassionate, that's not really compassion, right? If selfishness comes into it, then it's not really compassion. Compassion is compassion, kindness is kindness, when there is no reason behind us offering whatever we're offering. Why is he so compassionate? Because vultures are one of the sort of most tamasic creatures. They eat the dead flesh of animals, even humans. And even to such a vulture, Śrī Rāma gives the highest abode. He is most compassionate. Sunuhu ma te log abhagi. Now, Lord Shiva is telling Parvati ji. In this Ramayana, Lord Shiva is one of the narrators of the story. And he is telling the story to Parvati ji. So now he says, those people are unfortunate, Hari Taji Hohi Bishaya Anuragi, who give up any affection or love for God, and instead who direct all their love towards sense objects. Those people are truly unfortunate in life. Misfortune is not losing wealth or losing property or losing assets. Misfortune is not losing even the use of our body. Misfortune is misdirecting our mind, ignoring God, who is the source of all love and who is the source of everything. Ignoring God and running after pleasures in the world, that is misfortune. Because what will we get, right? When you compare the rewards that are available by chasing some worldly success, worldly pleasure, and the rewards that are available by seeking God, there is really no comparison. But we forget so easily. We forget God because the world is so tangible in front of us. And it offers immediate, instant gratification, right? Prayers. This is what happens. And so it's very easy to forget God. But that is our misfortune. That doesn't mean we're helpless. Right? The thing here is, if we put forth just a little bit of effort, then we can direct our mind away from the world, away from those tiny, meaningless worldly pleasures, and we can direct our mind toward God. Then we will be most fortunate. So now this episode comes to an end, and the story continues. So again, now these two brothers are on their way through the forest. They are looking for Sitaji. And they continue through the forest, seeing all the trees and animals and everything. Now, this forest that they're walking through is full of, it's like a very thick forest, full of trees and creepers, and there are so many birds and deer, elephants, even lions in this forest. So they have to make their way through. And on the path, now there is this very short incident that takes place here. On the path, they meet someone very interesting. They meet a demon, asura, called Kabandha. Avatapantha Kabandha Nipata. So they meet this Kabandha. And this Kabandha has a very interesting form. There are lots of stories as to how he got this form, but essentially it's the result of a curse. He was cursed by one rishi, one sage called Durvasa. And this Durvasa has still a reputation for getting angry very easily. So Durvasa rishi cursed him, and basically he had this form where he had no head. And so his eyes were, I think in fact one place described he only has one eye, that's his chest. And then he has these two long arms. Kabandha means like torso, and that's basically all. The form that he had was just a torso. He didn't have a neck or a head or anything. So it's very strange form that this Kabandha asura has. So Rama and Lakshmana both, they meet him on the way, and he tells them the story about Durvasa. He says he cursed me. He was actually a Gandharva. So Gandharva are these beings who live in the higher worlds, and they have a great affinity for music and dance and all such things. So Durvasa Rishi cursed me, and that's why I became like this asura. But now that sin has been completely removed by meeting you, Bhagavan. So Bhagavan liberates this asura, and now he gives this teaching to Kabandha. Śrī Rāma is giving this teaching very briefly to Kabandha, which requires a bit of thinking, because what is said is something that not very easily, at first glance, not very easily digestible, something that requires some careful thought. And so what we'll do is, because we only have a few minutes left, we will see this next time. What does Śrī Rāma tell Kabandha? But from today's session, the important things were what we see from Jatayuji's story. So one is that thought about success, and also about the choice between Shreyas and Preyas. Then so many beautiful things are said in this praise, in this stuti that Jatayu offers Bhagavan. And the other point about seva, right? And when we offer service, why do we offer service? So all those things we saw today. And next time we will see this teaching that Bhagavan gives Kabandha, and then there is this really beautiful portion, very well known, that is now coming in the story, where Śrī Rāma meets Shabariji. And he has this dialogue with Shabariji, this lady, old lady who is living in the forest. And he teaches her about the 9 forms of devotion. So a really beautiful bit coming up that we will see in the next session. So for today, we will conclude here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.